time for change. Change to everything and absolutely anything. But with that being said, the most obvious question would be is, how's this all to begin? And yet with it starting as such, it's obviously being answered as such. So of course this is all to be a free exploration into a matter or issue concerning that of life. And that a few notes have also been made to briefly explore this expansive issue concerning that of life. So to avoid anybody being lost with in regards to this one singular explanation, it's reflecting upon what has brought us into this physical present state of the now and directing this towards the state of a seed. Now, as the state of the seed has come to exist within my hand, is to easily realize and recognize that the state of the seed has originated through the state of a flower. But through its originating from a state of a flower, it has then come to exist with a meaningful state. And it is this meaningful state which is then able or capable of being associated or connected to the one singular state of the emotional consciousness, whereby it's then through this description that it is then being able to state that I am now currently holding a crystallized form of the emotional consciousness. Yet, if the meaningful state of the flower, now with the state of the flower being described as a meaningful state, it is then associating the state of the flower with the emotional experience, of which of course is then to be associated or connected to the one singular state of the emotional consciousness. Now, if the state of the flower has originated from the existing state of the tree, it is the existing state of the tree which is then to be associated or connected to the one singular state of the emotional awareness, of which of course is also the one singular state of the emotional spirit. Now, this then would be clearly indicating that the learning state, the questioning state, of which of course is all to be associated with the egotistical perspective state of thought consciousness, is then to be directed towards the state of a seed. Now, in that description, it could then be stating that I am now not only currently holding a crystallized form of the emotional consciousness, but also a crystallized form of the egotistical perspective state of thought consciousness. However, as the state of the seed has come to exist in my hand, is to easily realize and recognize that it hasn't come to sensationally attract an infinite amount of knowledge unto its state of being, for it to not only learn this infinite amount of knowledge, but through using the known sensational vibrational energy of emotional love, it would then also come to sensationally attract this infinite amount of knowledge into a one singular state of emotional understanding. And again, it is through the one singular state of emotional understanding that it is then to emotionally know how to creatively produce a meaningful state, whereby then, as the state of the seed has come to exist in my hand, it is still then only existing as the crystallized form of the emotional consciousness. Now, if each individual has originated through the state of an egg, of which of course has come to exist within the mother's womb, of which of course is also existing within a state of darkness, this then would be placing the seed into the ground to exist within a state of darkness. Now, in that, it would then be enabling the state of the seed to sensationally attract an infinite amount of knowledge unto its state of being, for it to not only learn this infinite amount of knowledge, but again, through using the known sensational vibrational energy of emotional love, it then would also come to sensationally attract this infinite amount of knowledge into a one singular state of emotional understanding. And it is within this state of emotional understanding that the one singular state of the emotional awareness then comes to sensationally acknowledge a one singular state of emotional truth within this infinite amount of knowledge. And it is through sensationally acknowledging this one singular state of emotional truth that it then comes to emotionally know how to creatively produce the meaningful state through using the one singular state of emotional truth. Now, of course, the meaningful state is then to be directed towards the state of the root, whereby then clearly indicating that the learning state, the questioning state, of which of course is all to be associated with the egotistical perspective state of thought consciousness, is then to be associated or connected to the state of the existing root. Of course, especially when it's the egotistical perspective state of thought consciousness that has also come to physically associate or connect itself to this physical state of existence, whereby again it is through the state of the root that the one singular state of the emotional awareness is then able to physically exist within this physical state, due to it being connected or associated with this physical state. Now, directing this towards the state of the existing egg. If I were to openly explore this a tiny bit more, it is to acknowledge that the existing egg is the one singular state of the emotional consciousness, of which again is a one singular state of pure emotion. Now, through it creatively producing a meaningful state, whereby creatively producing the meaningful state of the root is then to be directed towards the existing state of the brain. Now, it is due to the brain that again everything is basically going to crystallize into a state of physical formation, right? But of course, while it's to exist within a state of darkness, is to constantly sensationally attract an infinite amount of knowledge unto its state of being. And again, through using the non-sensational vibrational energy of emotional love, it would then come to sensationally attract this infinite amount of knowledge into a one singular state of emotional understanding, whereby then coming to associate it or connect it to the one singular state of the emotional awareness. Now, again, the existing state of the root is, of course, to be associated or connected to the egotistical perspective state of thought consciousness. But it is the existing state of the one singular state of the emotional awareness, of which again is the one singular state of the emotional spirit, which is then to be associated or connected to the existing state of the tree, whereby in this, of course, the root is to creatively produce the seedling, right, within the state of the ground. And of course the seedling is obviously going to burst out of the ground into a physical state of light. Now, in exploring this with the human state, I would then be to acknowledge that through this process, the one singular state of the emotional awareness is then to be creatively formed through the existing state of the lungs. When again, freedom, the existing state, the existing notion of freedom is easily able to be explored and experienced through just merely breathing in and out, in and out, in and out. This is eliminating the distinguishing state completely from a state of security, a state of limited security, if you want to call it that. Now, of course, everything is obviously going to crystallize and form and all of that within the mother's womb. And of course, we are going to be born into this physical state, just as the seedling is going to be born into this physical state. Okay, but again, we are to exist. Our physical state is the one singular state of the emotional awareness within a crystallized form. Okay. Now, in exploring this a tiny bit openly, as well within regards to a broader perspective. If we had to go on to any tree, a tree that has possibly been growing for 50, 100 years, right? And if people had to cut that tree down, it's easy to notice that there are rings on the tree bark, right? On the tree base type of thing. And those rings are able to predict, or not predict, but are able to, how could you say, relay the history of what that tree came to experience within this physical state. And it should be acknowledged that this is easily able to be directed towards the physical state of the human as well, right? Now, of course, we are to be born into this physical state, thus removing us from a state of darkness. However, due to us existing with the egotistical perspective state of thought consciousness within this physical state, although we are to physically see a state of light, it is due to the egotistical perspective state of thought consciousness that we are to physically exist within a constant state of darkness, especially when the egotistical perspective state of thought consciousness is within a constant state of question. This even within regards to the sixth sense of the egotistical perspective state of thought consciousness, which is also the distinguishing state. Now, the distinguishing state is also within a questionable state. Now, in mentioning that then, right, it is then able to associate us with the tree of knowledge. Now, remembering that within the biblical scriptures, the tree of knowledge is the tree that Adam and Eve came to consume, the forbidden fruit that they came to consume, that influenced them with the sixth sense of the egotistical perspective state of thought consciousness, whereby this again is the distinguishing state. Whereby within this, it would then seemingly be eliminating the connection with the one singular state of the emotional awareness, right? So, of which of course is then to be able to be directed towards this tree of life, right? Now, a state of deceit is easily able to be directed towards a state of vision of thought. Now, this then would be reflecting upon the context of the egotistical perspective state of thought consciousness, learning an infinite amount of knowledge. But through using the distinguishing state, which is associated with the egotistical perspective state of thought consciousness, it then comes to think that it knows a state of truth within this infinite amount of knowledge, right? And then through thinking that it knows this state of truth, it then comes to creatively produce a meaningful state. But again, this is a thought of truth, whereby then clearly indicating that this meaningful state is then also to be a questionable meaningful state, whereby then a deceitful meaningful state. And exploring a truthful state, this is then able to be directed towards the emotional state of clarity, creating something through an emotional vision, a visionary experience, if you want to call it that, whereby within this it would be reflecting upon the context that the egotistical perspective state of thought consciousness comes to learn an infinite amount of knowledge. But through using the known sensational vibrational energy of emotional love, it then will be sensationally attracting this infinite amount of knowledge into a one singular state of emotional clarity. And it is within this one singular state of emotional clarity that the one singular state of the emotional awareness is then able to sensationally acknowledge a one singular state of emotional truth within this one singular state of emotional clarity, which again has come to exist with the infinite amount of knowledge. And it is through sensationally acknowledging this one singular state of emotional truth within this infinite amount of knowledge that it is then to emotionally know how to creatively produce a truthful, meaningful state, right? So, in that being stated, okay, if it were to, how could you say, reflect upon what has been distinguished as the requirements, I mean, for the plant's growth, living growth, the roots living growth within this physical state, right? Now, the distinguished requirements have been distinguished as soil, air, water, nutrients, and sunlight. But now in that, it would then be associating soil with the grounding foundation, air with knowledge, water with life. Water is life, thus it is the existing state. Nutrients is, of course, needs. Sunlight, the light of life. This is the emotional happiness for plants to exist, right? Now, of course, before exploring this even more, right, reflecting back on the tree of knowledge and the tree of life, right, again, the six, of course, as the egotistic or perspective state of thought consciousness is constantly existing within a constant state of darkness. It is to use the five physical senses of the one singular state of the emotional awareness within a crystallized form to learn an infinite amount of knowledge from this physical state, right? But again, the sixth sense of the egotistical perspective state of thought consciousness, thus the sixth sense of the tree of knowledge is then to be the distinguishing state, whereby then clearly indicating that the sixth sense of the tree of life is then to be the one singular state of the emotional awareness, right? Now, reflecting upon a tree's natural physical state of existence, just on the basic tree's natural physical state of existence, it is to easily equally realize and recognize that a tree's natural physical state of existence is easily able to be noticed as a perfect symbolic notion to physical meditation within this physical state, whereby the tree is constantly existing within a constant state of acceptance. It is constantly learning an infinite amount of knowledge through using the known sensational vibrational energy of emotional love, right? And through learning, through, how could you say, sensationally attracting this infinite amount of knowledge into a one singular state of emotional understanding, it then also comes to emotionally know how to creatively produce itself into this physical state, whereby then also clearly indicating that a tree's natural physical existence is then easily also able to be a perfect example of a symbolic notion to that of lucid meditation, whereby this is, of course, towards lucid dreaming, right? So, of course, trees are meditating. Okay, so then if I were to direct this towards the following picture, right? Of course, it is a beautiful picture to be noticed. You can see it's existing in the natural environment, somewhere in this world, right? There's a tiny little house, but let's just avoid that. Let's just say that a grower one day came and just threw a whole bunch of seeds neatly out, just left them all to naturally grow. In this notion, it will be stating that there is one grower, the unknown, so let's call it the universal grower, the earthly grower, right? In that, it would also be stating that there are no investors to be noticed within this, and that the state of mental guidance, I mean knowledge, air has just come to exist all around these plants, so they are just able to constantly learn and just constantly release, constantly learn and constantly release. I mean, this is a natural motion to just constantly explore free knowledge as it comes and goes with the wind, and so to speak. In mentioning the state of mental guidance, now the state of mental guidance is either to be directed towards certain religious sects, right? But now in this state of freedom, spirituality, it's exploring the divine state of I am within every possible religious culture, sect, way of life, belief, anything. It is within a constant state of freedom. It is to discover, to experience the divine state of I am, to know more about life, right? And that, of course, is easily to notice that all 6 physical senses have come to exist within a complete state of freedom, right? Then, of course, directing this towards the state of natural light. Now, of course, it's easily to notice that the sun is real. It is a truthful, natural state. Thus, clearly indicating that this natural state of happiness that is being explored here is within a truthful state. This is an emotional truthful state. This is the state of compassionate happiness, where peace, love, happiness, truth, freedom is all able to exist within one singular state to be explored and experienced. Again, this is also universally, naturally controlled, regulated. Of course, the sun is going to move and night's going to come, but of course the sun's going to come back. But we have to acknowledge that even though that sun, the clouds may come to fill up the sky, that the sun is still there. It's still able for these plants are still able to grow towards the state of the sunlight, towards the state of this emotional happiness. Again, so in that, I would also then be noticing that each plant is also able to, how could you say, absorb an equal amount of this natural happiness that is shining down upon them, that all of this is within a constant state of equality. The natural air, of course, it's circulated, universally, earthly, circulated, regulated, controlled. Thus, wind can come, go, and all of that. But the mere fact is that we have to acknowledge that knowledge on the one side, air existing on the one side of this field, is obviously going to be circulated to closer to where we can see it much more closer. I mean, the mere fact is that this is a constant state of freedom. Knowledge is just able to be freely explored, freely learned, freely discovered within every possible aspect. In this, knowledge is free. Water, of course, directing this towards the state of rainfall. When it rains, of course, these plants are going to equally receive an equal amount of rain. There is not going to be a state of inequality existing within this natural state of environment. Again, in that, if water is to be a state of the existence, it is then to acknowledge that all of these plants are to receive a state of an equal existence, whereby then clearly indicating that they are to receive a state of a one existence, or that they are to exist within one existence. So, I mean, the mere fact is, it's also within a constant state of freedom. It is within a constant state of equality. It is freely distributed as the universe, as the earth seeks to bless us with water. And then, of course, nutrients, the natural needs. Natural foods, natural waters, natural beverages, natural supplements, natural medications, natural clothing. These are our natural needs. These are our natural requirements to just live and accept life for what it is and for all that it is able to be within this physical life, to just freely explore it as healthy living beings. And in stating that these trees are to exist within a constant state of health, it is then to acknowledge that there would be no natural support system needed. I mean, their own state is their own natural support system. There is no, I mean, let me correct that there would be no synthetic support system needed, and that their own natural state is their own natural support system. This is, again, a natural, healthy plant. Again, directing this towards the state of the soil, can clearly see the state of the soul isn't contained, thus it freely exists. Thus, I mean, if you had to truly think about it, how could you say it is the grounding foundation for all existing life? This is one singular grounding foundation that all these plants have come to share within this physical state. So in that being stated, it would then be directing towards the state of the roots. Now in that, of course, it's to notice that each plant has come to exist with its own personal space. Of course, when we were younger, growing up possibly, holding out your arms and saying, this is my personal space, being taught that this is your personal space, and that whoever comes beyond this boundary, this invisible boundary, if we have come to create it with our arms, if you had to think about it, there is this invisible, imaginative boundary of personal space that we have just come to freely exist within, and this is our own state. I mean, the mere fact, if you had to think about it, that if two plants had to be planted right next door to each other, I mean, this is a state of suffocation. So the mere fact is they are freely existing, but in that, these roots are able to sink down deep into the earth, to just explore more about this earth, to just get grounded more into this earth, to just explore. I mean, if it is the learning state, if the root state is to be associated with the egotistical perspective state of thought consciousness, and it is the egotistical perspective state of thought consciousness which is then to be associated with the learning state, it is then to learn more about earth, and that there is just an infinite state, and in that it then would also be noticing that deep down the soil there might be these tiny little roots that have spread across, and they're all touching each other, they're all being allowed to touch each other, thus clearly then indicating that the roots aren't within a constant state, aren't at all in a state of compression. And if they're not in a state of compression, then they're not in a state of depression. And if they're not in a state of depression, then they're not in a state of suffering. So in this, they are connecting with each other in one physical grounding space, but still existing within their own state. Now, in associating this with the tree of life, it then will be directing this state, this grounding explorative experience of the egotistical perspective state of thought consciousness, towards the state of the 7 virtues of life, of which of course are all to be associated with the 7 chakras, whereby the state of the crown, of course, is to be associated with the state of humility. The third eye is to be associated with the state of kindness. The throat is to be associated with the state of forgiveness. The heart is to be associated with the state of diligence or passion. The solar plexus is then to be associated with the state of charity. The sacral is to be associated with the state of temperance or patience. The root is to be associated with a state of chastity. Now, chastity, to withhold yourself. It is withholding yourself from invading another individual's space, but still interacting with other individuals, interacting with other trees. So it's how could you say, preventing you from invading another individual's grounding space, right? Rooting space. Again, so directing this towards the state of the plants. Of course, plants, each plant is able to freely grow to its full potential, just freely be as it is, to just freely grow as it has come to exist within this natural state, and then being able to interact with all these other plants without anybody, being able to touch insects, birds, whatever comes the plant's way. Being able to just physically exist as a natural free plant. This is your natural free existence. Again, we have been positioned, obviously these plants have been positioned, right? But the mere fact is that the existence is relevant. It is to be where you are meant to be in the constant state of the present, to creatively produce the meaningful state of the present. Where you are meant to be is where you are meant to be, to creatively produce where you're meant to be. So, and that, it would then be directing this towards the state of the flowers. Now, if the state of the flowers, the emotional experience, this is obviously to be the meaningful state of the flowers, to be the emotional experience. Now, the truthful state of the emotional experience, the truthful state, the mere fact is, it would also be acknowledging that in this, the earth, the universe, has come to accept every single flower that has been produced on these plants. Every single flower, regardless of size, regardless of weight, regardless of anything, regardless of the strain, regardless of anything, even mentioning strains, the mere fact is that there could be a whole variety going on here, and it could be in a constant state of perfection due to it existing through the universe. The mere fact is, these flowers are naturally created, truthful experiences. This is a truthful state of emotional peace, love, happiness, and freedom. And where is peace, love, happiness, and freedom if there is not an existing state of truth within all of that? So again, and that, it then would be done directing this towards the state of the natural environment. Of course, it's easily to notice. No walls, nothing. Birds are allowed to come, the winds are allowed to come. Nature is just allowed to happen. Life is just allowed to happen as it's meant to be. These plants are seeing the stars, seeing the sky, seeing the clouds, seeing life come into a state of an existence, and as it comes into a state of existence, it is also being able to explore it and experience it at the same time. So the mere fact is, this is within a constant state of freedom. And that, of course, this is able to be described as a natural biological system, where it is actually working with the earth and not against the earth. Again, the environment, these plants are part of the environment, they are part of the earth, they are part of the universe, they are part of life. This is living life. So, in exploring that even more, tiny bit more openly, in exploring that, people say that yes, negative things happen. Obviously, Buddha even came to state that physical, mental, and emotional suffering will occur, right, within this physical life. But it is through love that we are able to overcome it. Now this then is being directed towards a biblical scripture from the Lost Gospel of Thomas, where Jesus comes to state the following words. And Jesus said, if the two make peace with each other in a single house, they will say to the mountain, move from here, and it will move. Right? Now, let's say now weather, climate change is obviously happening. So let's say now a tornado or hurricane comes passing through you, and it brings a great big obstacle in the middle of this field. Now, through learning an infinite amount of knowledge from what has happened, and through using the non-sensational vibrational energy of emotional love, it then would be to sensationally acknowledge a one singular state of emotional truth within this one singular state of emotional clarity. Again, this one singular state of emotional clarity is to be the one singular state of the emotional imagination, and it is through sensationally acknowledging this one singular state of emotional clarity, emotional truth within this one singular state of emotional clarity, it is then to sensationally or emotionally know that the obstacle is merely nothing to how life is able to continue. The truthful state that the mere fact is that life is merely able to simply continue, that the obstacle is merely nothing to the force of life. Again, we have come to exist with the spirit of power, love, joy, happiness, and freedom. This is a notion of life, to just move past whatever obstacles there are in this life. There is a state of truth. Again, if this obstacle is able to be noticed, the state as a state of darkness. Again, a state of darkness is an infinite amount of questionable knowledge. And again, this is then being directed towards the notion that with an infinite amount of questionable knowledge, it's to sensationally learn this infinite amount of questionable knowledge through using the non-sensational vibrational energy of emotional love. And it is through using this non-sensational vibrational energy of emotional love that it is to sensationally attract this infinite amount of questionable knowledge into a one singular state of emotional understanding. And it is through emotionally understanding the one singular state of emotional truth that has come to exist within this infinite amount of questionable knowledge, that it is then to emotionally know how to creatively produce a meaningful state, a truthful, meaningful state. And again, this truthful, meaningful state is for the betterment of life, whereby in back directing this towards the state of the existing environment, and as these plants have come to exist in this physical state of the natural environment, in the universal earthly natural environment, if any person had to do their own research of how these plants are able to have such a positive impact on the natural state of the earthly environment, then it is to, how could you say, how is it to ignore what an individual or individuals are able to do for the natural earthly environment? So, of course, with that being said, may the lovers keep on loving and the haters keep on hating, and of course, this will be continued. So, with that being with equal understanding, may we so. Namaste.